As I said, this is my third trip, I guess, here to speak with you. I'm always delighted to be able to not only hear what you were up to and to get caught up on what Internet2 is doing in the K20 context, but also to share with you a little bit about what we're doing. And there's a particular activity that we're involved with that I'll spend most of the time talking about today that I hope I can enlist some of you in as well. I'm also going to break the cardinal rule of presentation and actually pass something out while I'm talking, only because the slides aren't big enough to see. But so if you just take pass it around. I will try to be as vitally interesting as I hope the paperwork is. But anyway, one of the things that we're focused on is we came up with a recognition that a lot of technology planning, particularly at the school and district level, has historically been device or hardware driven. It's been a conversation, if there was one, between a technology person, maybe somebody in an authorizing or other kind of role, but in large part, the conversations around technology have been led by Mac or PC, laptop or desktop, as opposed to a particular instructional vision. And then part of the reason why we felt that often goes on is because there was no common entry point for a conversation among all of the stakeholders who needed to be at the table. There was in fact no big picture for what a learning ecosystem that linked homeschool and community supported by technology really looked like. So we came up with a big picture. And it's an idea called, we're calling it School 2.0 because we want to get people thinking about the future of school, the next generation of schooling. And I'm passing a poster around to you right now. But the idea is that there are groups of people who need to be engaged in this conversation, who needed to have a way to see themselves in the conversation. Certainly teachers and administrators and parents, but also community members, policymakers, students themselves, administrators, really to begin a dialogue around what it is that they want to do. What is the learning ecosystem? What's the connection to home? How does the community get involved? What are the ideas that the community thinks are important? What are the values that they're trying to communicate? And hopefully what we've done is put some ideas out there. This is not a finished product. It is not the federal government's view of the future of schooling. It is really just an opportunity. It's a brainstorming tool. And it's really designed as a way to start a conversation. We hope and start a conversation at a lot of different levels. People have asked us a lot. So is this for principals? Is it for superintendents? Is it for teachers? Is it for parents? And the answer is yes. Because we realize that this conversation is going to start at a lot of different places. In some cases, it's led by students. In some cases, it's led by the community. In other places, it's led by, future-focused principals or teachers. But that hopefully having a common entry point for the conversation allows people to engage in a dialogue about what do they want to do. Do they want to be able to communicate with kids around the world? Are they focused on reading? Are they focused on literacy? Are they focused on adequate progress? Are they focused on data-driven decision-making? Whatever the myriad issues that the schools and districts are focused with, there's an opportunity to have a conversation around the role that technology can play. And we found we've seen that doesn't often happen. And so hopefully these conversations around what schools and districts want out of their educational system leads to a conversation about the role that technology can play in delivering that. And that gets to everything from infrastructure to applications to devices to data. The whole, again, looking at this at a systemic level rather than looking at it as in a siloed context. And so we put up a little website at school2-0.org, which has, at this point, just the poster and some sort of supporting documentation around it. What we're doing now, and where I want to really engage with all of you, is, first of all, I would love it if you could take a look and give us feedback. There's a little feedback email address, and your thoughts on this would be particularly helpful. But also, what we recognize too is that there are some critical roles within schools and districts that are critical to this conversation, and one is the school principal. We know that there's a lot of emphasis on teachers, and teacher training is certainly a critical part of the puzzle, but there are a lot of people who are focused on teachers, frankly. And it also seemed like that principals are really necessary to create that ecosystem, to create that right kind of environment, to give the forgiveness or permission or whichever you feel is most important for teachers to be able to experiment with the technology, to give, to create the right kind of environment that support collaboration and support peer grouping and a lot of the sort of management structure that can facilitate quality technology implementation. And so we're working with the National Principals Associations to help develop some tools and resources that are able to take this conversation to the next level from a principal perspective. And the second group that we're focused on are the technology directors. And we know that, and one of the things that we're focused on as well is the fact that there are almost 16,000 school districts, 90-some thousand schools, so there's a pretty substantial range of types of schools and districts that are out there. And we're trying to look at the data and trying to see if we can understand what the sort of profile, if you will, of different types of school districts are so that we can help to target our technical assistance a little more directly, rather than just saying, you know, here's one size and it fits all, but really trying to look more closely at both the kinds of skill sets that folks who manage technology need to operate in those particular environments. But what are the types of conversations that need to go on between the technology folks and the educators around this sort of demand side view of what we want the technology to do for us, and then a separate conversation about what particular technologies need to be arrayed in order to do that. And one of the areas that we're focused on for the CTO toolkit is really looking at bandwidth planning, because we know that absent bandwidth, a lot of this doesn't work. And that we also know that the whole understanding about how to provision, how to understand, how to be able to articulate what your bandwidth needs are going to be in a growth kind of model are not at all, certainly not at all standardized. And so we're looking at what are the types of tools and resources that are available out there on the internet today or available from other sources today that we can pull together and make available. What are some of the planning methodologies or planning rules of thumb and others that technology directors around the country use to help determine what their needs are, but also how to provision and support that, and how does that play at schools and districts of varying topologies? One of the things that Liz and I were talking about earlier was, there's been a lot of good work, particularly on the land side. You've got lots of schools now with fiber backbones and gigabit to the desktop, and wide area networks that are pushing all sorts of